to show that they were really in tune and listening to you. And then the other piece is empathy is the capacity to recognize and extend to share the feelings that are being expressed by another. And you do all of those pieces through the body language that you have, through the words that you choose to use at that particular time. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that spectrum look like and what the skill set can look like, because not always is empathy one of those things that comes natural for everyone. Especially if you don't have that rapport and relationship established with someone. So you may have different spectrums of empathy, depending on your relationship that you have and your ability to connect with someone in their story. So I'm going to show you a video. And if you've heard of Brene Brown, she's a renowned researcher, and she's done a lot of work with vulnerability, trust, I would say being a compassionate leader. But one thing that she's done is she's done a research on the difference between empathy and sympathy. Because I think as educators, that's kind of where we are sometimes. We're like in those areas. Either we're really sympathetic, we're almost in a sense of being somewhat paralyzed because we're just experiencing the emotions without really doing anything, or we're experiencing it and we're letting it go, or wallowing with somebody with it. However, with sympathy, she might give you a little bit more. So as you're watching the video, a couple things I want you to kind of think about is, how does sympathy and empathy differ from what she says? To recall a time where someone may have showed you empathy, and how did it make you feel? Okay. And please let me know. I'm going to stop share because I know I didn't click share sound now that I think about it. So let me stop share and I'm going to reshare. And please let me know if you cannot hear the sound, okay?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So when you look at that video, what thoughts come to your mind, especially when you're thinking about how do empathy and sympathy differ from each other? And I'm going to be quiet and I'll let someone who's brave take the mic.
Okay. I wanted to kind of comment on it. And the difference is hard to see a lot of times, like between empathy and sympathy. Because a lot of times when someone comes to you with an issue or a problem, it's kind of like the first thing you want to do, like she was saying, is try to say something that's going to make them feel better or try to judge the situation or give them your own personal thoughts of it. But a lot of times I think when a person comes to you, they don't really want to answer. They just want to know you care, or you got the moment to just hear them. And it's hard to distinguish between that. I have that issue a lot too, where when a person comes to you, it's not that they really want to answer, but they just want an ear to listen. And it's hard to not comment. But then again, sometimes when you don't comment, they kind of feel like you don't care or you don't. Do you know what I'm saying? To me, it's a big line between it that is very evident. And you could mess that up if you're not careful with the person. And it's hard to see. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Lovelace.
And sometimes I think they just, they just need a hug or to hold my hand, when you're empathetic towards someone. And you don't have to say anything, but, that hug would just sometimes give that relief. Even you don't know what to say. A lot of times I don't know what to say, or I'll just be praying silently and not get a word, something encouraging, But it's just sometimes a hug might give them that relief.
So going back to that body language, yeah. Thank you, Ms. Oden. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. My thing is when someone is going through a situation, like mostly all the ladies just said, is just to just listen, just be an ear. And I sometimes have a habit of wanting to say something, like Miss Oden said, like silently praying for that person and hoping that the situation is going to become better and praying for encouragement for those people. But you have to just learn how to just stand and listen. Just listen, because a lot of us, we tend to want to talk instead of listen. So
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Any other thoughts out there?
Yesterday this is Nina Taylor. I was talking to a guy yesterday who this was just yesterday, was telling me that within 2 weeks, he lost his best friend that he's known since he was 5 years old, his mother and his sister. And when someone's telling you that, over the past 2 years, I've lost people too, a lot. At first, your first reaction is to say, oh, yeah, me too, and go into that you've been through the same thing. But just the way he was telling me and when he was talking, that I was moved to just not say anything. And I just listened to him talk for about 20 minutes. I think at that moment, and we've never met or anything. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. This was our first time speaking. I think he just really needed to get it out. And he was telling me how people think that he's something different than just a human being sometimes, because everybody's always coming to him, but nobody is hearing him. So I just listened. I just listened to him for about, I think it was like 23 minutes. I didn't say a word. And I think that, probably helped him more than anything I could have said or any kind of comparisons to his situation and mine. I just listened. And I think sometimes that your silence says more than, yes, I understand because I've been through it too. At that moment, that's all he really needed.
So just being there, being present
Yeah.
in the moment. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Mhm.
Hey, can I say something else?
Yes.
That's everything that all of us ladies are saying are a lot of things that we need to do with our students, because our kids come to us, most of them, I have to say, all of them are not from perfect homes. They are from places that we can't sometimes even imagine. So I mean, just being able to be quiet and listen to them, and some, like a lot of times kids will come in and I like to say, hey, what do you need?
Hmm.
What do you need to get your day started? What do you need to feel better? What do you need, this, or do you need food? You need a different shirt? Yeah, so I just wanted to add that. Okay.
Thank you. And all of you are touching on some key things. And if you have a comment, please jump in. But key things is definitely you are being present, and again, and attentive. Like giving someone 23 minutes of your time just to be there to listen to them. And then you were listening, as you're listening, you're making those connections in your mind, like, oh, I've experienced something similar to that. But even your silence is powerful. But in all of that, there was probably things being communicated to that person that showed that they had your undivided attention at that time. And when you're thinking about empathy, key things that kind of stood out from that video there was, one, you're going to be listening to understand, and that's without judgment. And you're doing some perspective taking, meaning that you're kind of recognizing the emotions and feelings that that person is going to. So you're almost like validating them to say, it's okay that you're feeling the way that you do. I get it. And if you can't, offer support. And sometimes your support is very explicit and you're saying what it is. What do you need? Like how Ms. Luann was saying, what do you need to make you get through today? Or it's offering somebody a hug, or just being present and standing there with them in that moment, in that time, just so that they can kind of get that off their chest and feel as if someone is actually listening to them. One of the things that we had found, me and Ms. Shope, who put this presentation together, is that there's empathetic skills. And sometimes we don't have to be the best in all of these areas, but some of these we can kind of grow in to say, how can I practice empathy? Because again, empathy is not going to be natural in all cases for all students, all colleagues, our family members, friends, neighbors. And sometimes it's just there are areas where we can grow in as individuals. So it's almost as if you're taking an assessment for yourself. So when you're looking at this, it gives you these categories. So it says listening, and then it tells you what you're doing when you're actually listening. You're identifying the root cause of the issue. Because as you're talking with someone, they may give you the whole background of everything that they've been through. But it helps them to kind of get that off their chest, but you're able to decipher, you're really listening intently to kind of say, what are they getting at? What are they saying? And you're holding on to key things that they're actually saying, because you might give that back in a paraphrase so that they do believe that you were listening and you understood them. And you may be able to unsurface, like, what is the real issue, or what is the real feeling or emotion that you're trying to navigate and manage at this time, and help them put words to that. You may have heard this saying, if you can name it, you can tame it, in regards to emotions. So if you can name and identify that emotion, that root cause, sometimes that's just enough acknowledgement that someone may need to say, yeah, you hurt me. It is, I'm sad. I recently had, in October, my aunt passed away, and she was one of four. And on the side of the family that she's on, my dad's side, it was 2 out of 8. females. So females are very rare in our family. Henceforth, we're pretty close to each other. So that left me with one aunt on my dad's side. And we were just together for a brunch over spring break. And then my aunt said, everyone's left me. My mom has left me, my grandmother, who we refer to as Mama. She's like, Mama left me and Emily left me. That's my aunt who passed away. And I was like, my aunt feels alone. Like we just listened. And I was able to connect to her feeling because I was wondering how is she coping, because they talk to each other on hours upon hours every day. And if you ever got called on a phone call with them, so I would never answer a phone call from them at work because I know it's not going to be a 10-minute conversation or 5 minutes. It's going to be probably an hour longer because they like talking that much. But in that moment, I identified my aunt's feeling and she feels lonely because her best friend is not here. So listening is key. And just hearing someone out, like you all said, that's an active way to show empathy. And then you might need to probe, because some people might need some digging going around there, and they might have some things like a reality versus imagine one, and they just might need some context brought to it so that they can see things actually as they are. And it might be a distorted sense of reality in some cases. In communication, is there something distressing in their language or in their patterns? So the way that they're communicating to you, when they start talking about certain things, does their voice become a little shaky? Is their body language, do you notice legs tapping, fingers like clicking, or you notice something where there's some fidgeting going on? And then leadership. Empowering and encouraging. It sounds like from people who are sharing, you're leaning in that space there. That's probably a strength in your empathy skills, because you're empowering and you're encouraging. Empowering meaning, I want to offer you some strategies for how to navigate this to ensure your success. Or encouraging, just being there to give someone a hug and let them know that they were heard. Then the next one is storytelling. Opening the eyes and minds to new possibilities. So they might be acknowledging where someone is, and when they're ready to have that conversation, what other possibilities are there, or what perspective may you not have considered as a tool to give them some other options available to them. And then influence, some people just need a plan sometimes, just for how to get through the day. And that plan can be as concrete or complex as it needs to be based on whatever the person's needs are. And the last piece is self-awareness. And self-awareness, I wish you would have added one more on there, social awareness, because self-awareness, and I like this because it gives you a pause. So I know what my skill set is. I think I do. And I know that counseling might be one of my limitations because I have not been to school to be a clinical counselor in any kind of way. But I'm a great resourcer, and I can help direct someone to people who can help, or agencies to help support in some of those areas. So just noticing what your limitations are when it comes to offering someone support with empathy. So what I would like for you to do at this moment, if you have a notepad with you, or just make a mental note, which one of these areas that's listed up here with the empathetic skills is your strength, and which is one of those that you may need to refine a little bit? So which one would be a strength for you? And what is an area that you might say, I might need to grow in this area just a little bit? So take a moment and note that. And you may want to have it jotted down somewhere. Let me ask you to do something with it. Everyone got theirs? Their strength and area of possible growth for their empathetic skills? Okay, let me stop sharing for a second. And I would like to say, and please, you may have to unmute your mic, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of privacy to do that. I'm not gonna put you on the spot.